are going to go over the Code of Ethics training. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each portion, and then I'm going to kind of pinpoint on some different parts of each portion. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and add them in the chat, and I will answer them, and we'll be good to go. So from there, I'm going to go ahead and get us going here. Now, what is the Code of Ethics? I'm actually going to stop my video so that you can really see what's going on here. All right. Realtor and real estate agent. A realtor is a member of the National Association of Realtors, the largest trade organization in America with 1.3 million members, 1.7 million in total real estate agents. 1.3 million members are members of the National Association. So what that means is that in order to be called a realtor, you have to be a member of the National Association. So there are 400,000 realtors, 400,000 real estate agents who are not considered realtors, meaning that they got their license and either they're not with a company, but they're just licensed, or they started their own company and are not using the MLS, so they're not a part of the board, or they're with a company that doesn't join the board. Most of the time when you're with a company that's not a member of the National Association of Realtors, number one, you're not going to have MLS access because you're not going to be cooperated with when you're not an agent. You're also going to usually be some kind of special company. So there's some kind of niche, whether it's investors who are just working off market properties, or maybe a property management company that's doing almost all rentals except for, sales for personal use. Okay, so those are kind of the different things that come up. But the bottom line that you need to remember is that a realtor is only a realtor if they're a member of the National Association. As a member of Kale Realty and a member of your board, whether it's the Chicago Association, Main Street, NASBAR, Three Rivers, whichever one you're a part of, you're a member of NAR. So you are a realtor, and that means that the expectation is for you to adhere to the Code of Ethics. It's mandatory. Now, there are 17 articles providing standards for conduct with clients and customers, the public, and other realtors. If a realtor violates the code, a complaint can be filed and disciplinary action can be taken by the local real estate association. Excuse me. Now, the standard of conduct applies in a realtor's dealings with clients and customers. It's their duty to protect their client's best interests, but treat all parties involved in a transaction honestly. With the public, you need to meet professional competency standards and stand against discriminatory housing practices. And among other realtors, you must refrain from making false or reckless statements about fellow professionals. All right. As far as the articles go, Article 1 is to protect the best interest of the client. Now, I've pulled out a few pieces of Article 1 that I want to read to you and go over. So standards of practice 1-1, when acting as a principal in the transaction, you remain obligated by the Code of Ethics. So just because you are selling or buying your own property, you are still bound by the code. You have to follow the same rules you would as a realtor. 1-3, in attempting to secure a listing, you shall not deliberately mislead the owner as to market value. Okay. What that means is that you cannot try and get them to make the price lower so it's easy for you to sell, right? Let's say it's worth 200,000, but you recommend 150 because you think it'll go quick. Not a good idea. Definitely a violation. 1-5, realtors may represent the seller or landlord and buyer tenant in the same transaction only after full disclosure to and with informed consent of both parties. Now, the only caveat to that, this is talking about dual agency, is that your policies and procedures within your company must also allow it. Here at Kale, we do not allow dual agency. So under no circumstance will you represent the buyer and seller. (1-6), realtors shall submit offers and counteroffers objectively and as quickly as possible. So you need to get any counter offer or offer to your client right away. It's not something that you can sit on. 1-7, when acting as listing brokers, realtors shall continue to submit the seller landlord all offers and counteroffers until closing or execution of a lease unless the seller landlord has waived this obligation in writing. Upon the written request of a cooperating broker who submits an offer to the listing broker, the listing broker shall provide, as soon as practical, a written affirmation to the cooperating broker stating that the offer has been submitted, or a written notification that the seller has waived the obligation to have the offer presented. So basically what this is saying, and this goes all the way until closing. If an offer comes in, you have to present it to your client. And at that point, it's up to the seller to obtain the advice of legal counsel prior to acceptance of a subsequent offer, if they can do it or not. But you have to present it, okay? And they'll find out what the damages would be. Maybe they'll have some kind of fine or some kind of thing that goes on monetarily that would be worth it for them to just say, you know what, we're going to take this higher offer. Sorry, closing's off. But ultimately, it's your responsibility to have to present this to your client at all times, all offers. 1-8, realtors acting as agents or brokers of buyer tenants shall submit to buyer tenants all offers and counter offers until acceptance, but have no obligation to continue to show properties to their clients after an offer has been accepted unless otherwise agreed to in writing. All right, so what this is saying is that you have to accept all offers and counter offers, but you don't have to continue to make the property available for showings unless the seller wants you to. Okay. And the last one I'm going to get into in standards of practice 1 is the obligation of realtors to preserve confidential information provided by their clients in the course of any agency relationship or non-agency relationship recognized by law continues after termination of agency relationships. Okay. So what this means is that you may not knowingly, during or following the termination of professional relationships with your client, reveal confidential information about the client, use confidential information about the client to the disadvantage of the client, or use confidential information of clients for the realtor's advantage or the advantage of third parties, unless the client's consent after full disclosure, or realtors are required to do this by a court order, or if it's the intention of client to commit a crime and the information is necessary to prevent this crime. All right. So that's some of the stuff for Article 1 that I think you should consider. Moving on to Article 2, no misrepresentation, exaggeration, or hiding facts about the property at hand. What that means is basically you're only obligated to discover and disclose adverse factors reasonably apparent to someone with expertise in those areas required by their real estate licensing authority. Article 2 does not impose upon the realtor the obligation of expertise in other professional or technical disciplines. All right. So anything that you look at and you can say, obviously, there's a leak. I see water on the ground. I see the drywall is messed up. I can see stains in the concrete, things that people can reasonably see. It's your responsibility to tell the seller, hey, we have to disclose this. If you have a seller that refuses to do so, then you no longer have a seller because you need to move on. All right. Article 3, realtors should cooperate with each other unless it's not in the best interest of the client, which is pretty much self-explanatory, but I will go into a couple portions of standards of practice 3. So 3-2. Any change in compensation offered for cooperative services must be communicated to the other realtor prior to the time that realtor submits an offer to purchase, lease the property. After a realtor has submitted an offer, the listing broker may not attempt to unilaterally modify the offered compensation with respect to that cooperative transaction. So if someone has submitted an offer, you can't all of a sudden decide, oh, you know what, I'm only offering 2% instead of 2.5% commission. Standard of practice 3-2 does not preclude the listing broker and cooperating broker from entering into an agreement to change cooperative compensation. So there are situations where you may come in under appraisal, right? So you both agree that you're going to take a portion of your commission off. Or maybe it is a short sale and the bank doesn't approve the 6% commission that you've requested. They said they're only willing to give 5%. So now you both need to agree to change the commission that you were intending on getting. Okay. Realtors in standard of practice 3-6. Realtors shall disclose the existence of accepted offers, including offers with unresolved contingencies, to any broker seeking cooperation. So basically what this is saying is you have to mark on the MLS that a property has gone under contract, okay? And you also have to talk to people about it. If someone calls you and asks, hey, is this property still available? If it's not, it's not. Standard of practice 3-11. You may not refuse to cooperate on the basis of a broker's race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. So there is no circumstance where you can refuse to cooperate because of anything not related to the transaction itself. All right. And this is new as of last year, but definitely important to remember. You cannot ever do that. Going on to Articles 4 and 5, disclose any personal interest in a property. So if you are buying or selling a property and you are going to be a principal in the transaction, you need to mark it. If it is your spouse or a immediate family member, you need to mention it. Articles 6-8, no recommending services for a kickback or collecting money under the table. Keep client funds separate from your own. So anytime that you are going to receive money, you need to receive that money via Kale Realty, and then we will pay you out. You can never collect money, whether it's from another agent within Kale, an agent outside of Kale, a buyer. You cannot accept money if it is not paid to Kale Realty, and then we pay it to you. Standard of practice 6-1. Realtor shall not recommend or suggest to a client or a customer the use of services of another organization or business entity in which they have a direct interest without disclosing such interest at the time of the recommendation or suggestion. So if you are involved, for instance, Kale has a title company, Rivers Title. If you decide that you want your seller to work with Rivers Title and our attorneys, they will know this because we require that disclosure to be made right away. Okay. So if there's anything that is related, the disclosure must be made. And that's why we have the disclosure for Rivers saying that Kale Realty owns Rivers and we are affiliated. If anything is done together, just so you know, we are the same company. Okay. And this is the exact reason why we have to get those disclosures signed. It's in the code of ethics that we have to. Article 9, all documents pertaining to the transaction should be presented to the buyer seller in understandable terms, which is why it's important for you to, if you have the ability to, I know right now with COVID and quarantining, we're doing a lot more Zoom meetings and phone calls, but ultimately, whether it's through Zoom or in person, you want to present a listing agreement, a contract, an offer, anything that you get directly to your client and actually explain it. You want to go through anything that could be construed as confusing, anything your client may not understand. You want to go through everything. That's the best way to make sure that you're on top of your game, that your client knows what's going on, and that you're not violating any codes. Article 10. So now we're getting to the duties to the public. All right. Article 10, no denying services on the basis of discrimination. All right. So standard of practice 10-1, when involved in the sale or lease of a residence, realtors shall not volunteer information regarding the racial, religious, or ethnic composition of any neighborhood, nor shall they engage in any activity which may result in a panic selling. However, realtors may provide other demographic information. All right. So if it has to do with race, religion, or ethnic composition, you cannot bring that up to your clients. You can't talk about it. Okay. You can't give people numbers. You tell them that unfortunately that's something they're going to have to research on their own because it is a violation of the real estate code of ethics. Standard of practice 10-3. Realtors shall not print, display, or circulate any statement or advertisement with respect to selling or renting of a property that indicates any preference, limitation, or discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. So the bottom line here is that you cannot make an ad stating that you have a preference about the person who is going to live there. Just can't be done. So don't do it. Standard of practice 10-5. Realtors must not use harassing speech, hate speech, epithets, or slurs based on race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity. Now, this is brand new within the last few months, and you'll notice that this does not specify anything about just real estate related. This is talking about social media. This is talking about in public. This is talking about anything that anyone can find you talking on or representing yourself on. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, anything like that. You cannot use any of these things. No harassment, no hate speech, no slurs, no racism, no sexism, no anything, basically anything that can be construed as a violation of this could potentially be a violation of the code of ethics, and you could get fined for it. And the reason being that there was just so much stuff going on this year and people saying things that were so offensive to other members of the real estate community that it really created a crazy line for a lot of people, not so much here in Chicagoland as in other areas, but being a member of some national groups, I saw some pretty intense conversations going on, stuff that just has nothing to do with real estate. And if you want to represent yourself as working with clients, you have to make sure that you don't hold yourself out as someone who's spewing hate, right? That just makes sense. Article 11, provide clients with competent services only within a realtor's professional scope. So when realtors prepare opinions of value or price, and this is standard practice 11-1, you must be knowledgeable about the type of property being valued. You must have access to the information and resources necessary to formulate an accurate opinion. And you must be familiar with the area where the subject property is located, unless lack of any of these is disclosed to the party requesting the opinion in advance. When an opinion of value or price is prepared, other than in pursuit of a listing or to assist a potential purchaser in formulating a purchase price, the opinion shall include the following, unless the party requesting the opinion requires a specific type of report. So, identification of the property, the date you make it, defined value or price, limiting conditions, including statements of purpose, any present or contemplated interest that you may have in the property, the basis for the opinion, including market data. If it's not an appraisal, a statement to that effect. Disclosure of whether and when a physical inspection of the property's exterior was conducted, and whether the realtor has any conflict of interest. So I hit two items right there. Item one is when preparing opinions, you must be knowledgeable about the type of property. So what that is saying is that if you have no experience putting value together for a multi-unit property, you've never done it before, you probably shouldn't just start doing it. Or if you are going to start doing it and you want this in writing, okay, verbally it means nothing, because if a client decides they're going to do a code of ethics violation on you, words are useless. It has to be in writing. So if you're going to do any of these items, if you're going to go to an area that you've never been before and try and help someone purchase a property or list a property, or if you're doing a type of property that you've never done before, you need to make sure that you have in writing to the client, hey, this is new to me. I have no experience doing it. I'm happy to do it for you. I just need to put in writing that that is the reason I'm doing it. And the reason that we do this is because sometimes, especially newer agents, we tend to bite off more than we can chew. We have someone call who says, hey, I have a listing for you. You're excited. Okay, awesome. I need the money. I'm just getting going. I want to do it. Oh, it's 150 miles away. Well, you probably have no knowledge of that area or the market in that area. And should you really be doing that? Probably not, right? At the very least, you should at least co-op with another agent that has experience there or ask for a referral. But if your client insists that they want you to do it, that's when you have to come out and say, okay, but here's the deal. Article 12, no false or misleading advertising. So a couple things I want to hit here. Unless they are receiving no compensation from any source for their time and service, realtors may use the term free and similar terms in their advertising and in other representations only if they clearly and conspicuously disclose by whom they are being or expect to be paid, the amount of the payment or the anticipated payment, any conditions associated with the payment, and any other term relating to their compensation. So you can't just say free for buyers. If you're going to write free for buyers, because we all know you're still getting paid, ultimately the buyer's paying for it because they're paying the price for the house. But on the sheet, at the end of the day, the Alta says that the seller is paying the commissions. So if you're going to put that, you would have to notate commission paid by seller. Okay. That's just an example for you. Standard of practice 12-7. Only realtors who participated in a transaction as the listing broker or cooperating broker, selling broker, may claim to have sold the property. Prior to closing, a cooperating broker may post a sold sign only with the consent of the listing broker. So if you did not have a side in the sale, you cannot claim to have sold the property. So you can't send out a mailer that says sold and it has 6 properties on it and your name and information to contact you if you need help. That's no good if you have not actually taken part in the sale. Okay, you have to. All right, sorry, question here. Standard of practice 12-8. The obligation to present a true picture in representations to the public includes information presented, provided, or displayed on realtors' websites. Realtors shall use reasonable efforts to ensure that information on the site is current. When it becomes apparent that information is no longer current or accurate, you must promptly take corrective action. So if you are putting properties on your website and you are not doing it directly via the MLS, then if you're just making let's say you're using Canva or you're using Photoshop and you're just creating a picture that says for sale, available now with the address and putting it on your website, as soon as that goes under contract, you have to mark on that picture under contract. You can't still have marketing up saying that it's available if it's not. Same thing goes for if you switch companies or if you switch phone numbers, okay? You have to make sure that everything is updated. Article 13, don't break the law. Pretty self-explanatory. Article 14, cooperate with the Realtor Board's investigative proceedings if charged with a violation. So you really have no choice in this matter, okay? If you have a violation, if someone does something, you have to cooperate. You have to provide them with any information that they're looking for and go through with the process, okay? Article 15, no false or misleading statements about other realtors. So there's a few things that I want to go over here. Realtors in standard of practice 15-1 shall not knowingly or recklessly file false or unfounded ethics complaints. So you can't just file something to file something. 15-2, the obligation to refrain from making false or misleading statements about other professionals, their businesses, and their business practices includes the duty to not knowingly or recklessly publish, repeat, retransmit, or republish false or misleading statements made by others. This duty applies whether false or misleading statements are repeated in person, writing, or by technological means. All right. So basically what this is saying is that you can't just put out there a rumor that you heard about someone who's doing business in your area in hopes of clients using you instead. Okay. 15-3, the obligation to refrain from making false or misleading statements about other real estate professionals includes the duty to publish a clarification about or to remove statements made by others on electronic media that the realtor controls. So what this is saying is if you have a Facebook group and someone writes something about another agent that is not true, or it's unprofessional, or it's not appropriate, it's your responsibility as the moderator of that page to take it down. That could be your personal page, that could be your business page, whatever it is. If there's something inappropriate and you have the ability to remove it, you need to do so. All right. Article 16, don't solicit clients that have already signed an exclusive listing agreement with another realtor. All right. So what that means is that, let's say you're cold calling or door knocking and you get someone who has their house listed and they're already working with an agent. At that point, you need to go ahead and just say, hey, sorry about that. I see you're working with someone. Good luck. And you move on. Okay. You can't continue to say, well, I could do this better, or I could do this better. If they have an agreement, game over. You have to move on. Article 17, contractual disputes will be mediated or arbitrated by the Realtor board. So things are not to be taken to court. They're to be taken to the real estate board, where mediation and arbitration will happen, and the board decides how things will go. Everything has to go through the board. Some common violations. All right. So a violation is when a realtor or a consumer files an ethics complaint to the local board. Once it's filed, the grievance committee will go over ethics complaints and arbitration requests and see if they're valid. If so, they will be passed to the professional standards committee for a hearing and possible disciplinary action. So if you are involved in any committees with your board, I am actually on the grievance committee for the Main Street organization. So there's two committees. Grievance is the first one where the complaints come in, we talk about it, decide if it should be moved on for a hearing or not. Then it goes to the standards committee, where they will actually have the hearing and decide if there's disciplinary action. The discipline that can be done is a fine not to exceed $5,000, a letter of reprimand, or the requirement that respondent attend an educational course. Some common violations are arbitration requests, which means that someone is not happy with the commission that they received, or someone feels like you were paid their commission. Okay, it's pretty common. Central lock violations. So if you access a property outside of the time frame for which you have requested it, you are in violation of central lock and can get a code of ethics violation. Article 1, protecting the best interest of the client, is a very common violation. Article 2, misrepresentation, exaggeration, or hiding facts about a property. Article 3, cooperating with each other unless not in the best interest of the client. Article 12, no false or misleading advertisement. And Article 16, soliciting clients that already have an exclusive listing agreement. So those are the most common that we see. Now, as far as Article 10, excuse me, the National Association's Professional Standards Committee extended the application of Article 10 of the Code of Ethics to discriminatory speech and conduct outside of real estate practice. Article 10 prohibits realtors from discriminating on the basis of race, color, religion, sex, handicap, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity in the provision of professional services and in employment practices. The board approved a new standard of practice that states you must not use harassing speech, hate speech, slurs against members of those protected classes. The board also approved a change to professional standards policy, expanding the code of ethics applicability to all of a realtor's activities, and added guidance to the code of ethics and arbitration manual to help professional standard hearing panels apply this new standard. The reason I brought this up again is it's super important to remember, once you are a realtor, you're always a realtor. You're always representing yourself as a realtor. Everything that you say is done under this code of ethics. So you have to be super careful, and you have to make sure that you follow the rules.